I think if you have the right vision and the motivation and the drive and you commit yourself fully, then anything is possible.
Hi, I'm Bram van der Goes, and thanks for listening to the Before and After Show, the podcast in which we are zooming in on specific moments in life that brought you further. My personal before and after moment was specifically last year when I was not happy in my job. Fortunately, I was lucky enough that CCV gave me the opportunity to figure out what I really like to do. I have to say it was quite a challenge and I had to do a lot of puzzling, but eventually I knew what to do. Make podcast. Podcast about personal stories, personal journeys, but most important, your personal events. These specific moments in life that brought you further. My manager loved the idea and said, go. So, enjoy this episode while walking, sitting, running, sleeping, or however you like to listen to podcasts. And let's start. The brothers Sander and Stefan Ummelen from Values Driven, who were guests in the before and after show as well, highly recommended my next guest because he had a specific moment in life where he decided to change it radically. Before, he only got energy for partying in LA. Now, as the founder and CEO, he puts a lot of energy in his scale-up company Spectral. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm happy to introduce you, Philip Gladek. Welcome, Philip. Thanks for joining.
Hi, Bram. Thanks for introducing and hosting.
Before we are going to start the conversation, I'd like to start with some yes or no statements. Please only answer with yes or no. And during the podcast, we will get a bit more context from your answers, hopefully. So the first question is, a study doesn't determine your future.
A study doesn't determine my future.
Determine your future, yeah.
Yes, it doesn't, right? That was.
Yeah. I wouldn't be where I'm now without my sister.
Yes.
We will be able to stop climate change and global warming.
Yes.
And that's hopeful. That's hopeful. Thank you. Well, like I said, along the way we will discuss this a bit further. But how did you start your day today?
Today, rolled out of bed pretty late. Got myself a coffee as I usually do in the morning, and then dove right into the agenda. So nothing spectacular, pretty standard.
All right. And do you normally do you prefer to start your day a bit later, or are you early bird?
Oh, I'm definitely no sort of early bird. But yeah, it depends a bit on how I slept, of course. But yeah, last night I was working a bit late, so I slept in this morning, and luckily I didn't have any calls until 10, so I could afford to sleep a bit later.
Exactly. You're located in the Netherlands, but you're an American, obviously. What brings you in the Netherlands?
Yeah, so actually I came to the Netherlands in 2012. I was at that time looking for a change of scenery. And well, my sister had imported me since she was already in the Netherlands here, yeah, working on starting her own company.
Okay, and you could join her company.
Well, so previously, before she started Metabolic, which is the company she's currently CEO of, and which I helped her start up from the beginning, she was working for a sustainability consultancy that she had started with her ex in Rotterdam. And so that was indeed the company that she was working with at the time that I came. And I started initially working with her and with that company, but soon thereafter she yeah, left and started Metabolic, which is where the journey began.
All right. But before you entered the Netherlands, you lived in the United States. Where did you grow up?
So I was born in New York City, and I well went to school there until I was 18. My parents had moved just outside of the city to northern New Jersey, so I was still in the New York metropolitan area, and yeah, doing the morning and afternoon commute every day to get into school. So yeah, that's the northeast of the United States.
Exactly. And how was your youth? How did you grow up?
Yeah, I would say I had a good childhood. No huge complaints.
What did you like to do as a kid?
Well, as a young boy, I guess growing up in those times, video games were certainly a big part of it. Playing with the friends, sports, stickball in the street, these kind of things, biking around the neighborhood, getting into trouble.
Bad trouble or just the regular trouble?
Well, in those days, it was innocent trouble, ringing neighbors' doorbells and running away, or on the night before Halloween, which was called Mischief Night. Yeah, then some eggs, some toilet paper came out, but nothing too severe.
Okay. Nothing criminal in that sense.
Well, it depends on your definition. I guess it was some kind of light criminal, but no, indeed, nothing criminal.
Okay. And did you have specific hobbies next to playing with other kids and playing outside or?
Yeah, definitely. I was always into music, so I played guitar and percussion as well, and that was one of my main hobbies, I would say. Yeah, growing up as a kid.
And did you dream of becoming a rock star when you grew up, or did you have that ambition?
Not really. I guess it was more, yeah, enjoying to play. Also, of course, my mother pushing me in that direction a bit to learn an instrument and such. So, but no, I don't think I really envisioned. Maybe there was a short time where you had this dream of right being in a band and becoming a rock star. But it was mostly just yeah enjoying the music and actually nowadays I apply some of the musical skills I gained doing a bit of music production also on the side, combining some instrumental with electronic music.
Oh, cool. And just as a hobby, or still some.
Yeah, yeah. Well, for years I had the ambition to get into it, and I bought myself Ableton and a controller, and then realized that it's quite a time investment to actually learn how to use all the stuff. So I tried a few times and then I wasn't really able to devote enough time to get into it. But as of the beginning of this year, I finally well, our company has grown. There's more things running autonomously, so I'm able to devote a little bit of time to my own personal hobbies, and that's well the main hobby at the moment, doing a bit of DJing and a bit of music production.
Okay, I have to say your name, Philip Gladek, is for me sounds like a DJ name already. So I'm not sure if you have an artist name, but this will do, I guess.
Philip Gladek, yeah, I guess you could work with any name, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's true as well. Well, but some names sounds better, when you say it out loud, and some because when I want to become a DJ, Bram van der Kroes is my name. I'm not sure if that's a good DJ name, but maybe
Uh,
that's it.
I don't have an official artist name. From friends back in the day used to call me Philly G.
Oh
So,
yeah, yeah.
although I think there is already a Philly G, probably somewhere out there. So yeah, maybe I'll just stick to my actual name.
Otherwise, if he is successful, maybe you just claim that name, and then you don't have to build up your crowd.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's always a strategy. Although I think I'd prefer to have my own unique sound and brand,
I
personal
can
brand.
exactly. I can imagine. But back to your childhood. What did you expect to become when you were little?
Yeah. So I mean, I think from my father, who was also on one hand very technical and had a scientific background, also an entrepreneur his whole life, basically. So I definitely got a lot from him in the desire to run my own business and sort of uh, determine my own path in that. But of course, growing up as a kid, I guess, pop culture largely revolved around the idea of success being, being rich, having a big car, being independent, and with all the things that I guess maybe perhaps are sometimes associated with the American dream, right? So that was kind of the mentality which largely stuck, as a teenager and as I grew into a young adult. My core focus was really on attaining those goals and creating myself in the vision of what successful what I was taught uh, meant to be successful.
Hmm.
And that was largely the pursuit in my younger years.
Yeah. Eventually, what did you study then to pursue that?
So even though I was always technically inclined as a child, and built robots and my own PCs, also again getting a lot of that from my dad. I ended up going to study business, specifically business strategy. So in the end, a study in which you don't actually learn much useful things. But like I said, my ambition was to really, be an entrepreneur and run my own business. It all sounded very sexy, so that was the choice for which study I went for.
And you didn't expect to become successful while doing technical things or creating things in that sense.
Well, no, when you're 18 or 17, whenever applying to universities for the first time, I don't know, at least I myself, uh, back then, right, didn't have the same perspectives as I do now. So, in retrospect, yeah, it would have been probably very useful to obtain more hard skills in those technical domains. But back then, I was really focused on, yeah, becoming successful, making a lot of money. And for me, the sort of business track was most closely linked to that set of objectives. And you're not really perhaps. I guess my dad probably told me a number of times, like, yeah, why don't you do engineering and learn something for real?
Yeah.
But back then you don't really listen to your parents. You kind of ignore and do your own thing. At least that's the kind of teenager I was.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. I recognize that. I always think when my father gave me some advice when I was little, uh, you don't listen to it. And now I have two kids myself, and I think, okay, when they are at that point that I need to advise them, I really don't know how to, because yeah, well, if I look back at myself and to other friends in your story, you just don't listen to it at that point. You're not open to it, I guess, right?
exactly, and especially, I mean, it depends on the person, right? Some people are more stubborn than others, and I was definitely more on the stubborn end of I do what I want, and I I didn't actually listen to or value other people's advice. I always wanted to figure it out myself, and that's
Hmm.
also a way of doing it. But then you learn a lot of lessons.
It's a school on itself.
Oh yes.
Where did you study? Was it in New York or
No,
somewhere
actually,
else?
I chose a university which was still in the States, but as far as possible away from my parents as I could
Yeah.
get. So from the northeast coast to the southwest coast in Los Angeles.
Okay. Oh wow.
Yeah, I went to USC, which is the University of Southern California.
Okay. And your parents, weren't they happy about that choice?
Oh, I think by then they were actually happy to be rid of me. But if you ask them again 5 years later if they were happy that I was so far from home, they probably would have said, well, no.
But then you did you travel a lot back and forward, or did you just live in LA and see them once in a while?
Yeah, mostly in LA, and I was also, in parallel to studying entrepreneuring myself, so I was quite, busy in my bubble there, and actually in that time I had very little contact with my parents, especially also my sister. I think there was a time where I had not seen her and maybe spoken to her just a couple of times over the course of 2 or 3 years. So there was really not that much contact. I was again, yeah, in my own bubble in
Yeah,
LA on the other side of the States.
yeah. Was there a reason for that you didn't speak that much to them, or was it really because you were living in your bubble and that was the most important thing at that point?
Yeah, basically, I was very immersed in my own life, and yeah, a lot of also just uh, partying and being out all the time, and yeah, not really um, being connected, right, to things outside of my own existence, and given the also the large distance with my between where I was and the rest of my family, that also, of course, didn't help.
And did you have some specific expectations when you moved to LA? Was it the partying or was the study as well?
Yeah, I think the combination of yeah, I of course grew up in a big city, so moving to I got accepted to some quite good schools that were in smaller towns or cities, you would call them, but without much happening. So coming from New York City, I definitely wanted a place that was, in my mind, going to be an equal level of, yeah, dynamic kind of a thriving vibe. Also, the climate in LA, and again, the fact that it was far away from my home, were all appealing factors. Although, to tell you the truth, I must say I did not like Los Angeles too much after having lived there. I mean, the first few months were cool. It was kind of like a holiday and nice weather all the time. But then you start to actually realize that, well, it's not really on the same level of yeah, metropolitan environment as a New York or a city with a lot of density. It's really an urban sprawl. So it wasn't really actually the kind of city vibe I would have liked. But I made the best of it, and I definitely learned a lot of things living in LA.
But for how long did you stay there?
I lived there for 5 years.
You already mentioned that you were always willing to start your own business as well when you were little. You did your studies in LA, and next to that, you did some entrepreneurial things as well.
Yes, indeed.
And what was it?
So,
Sorry.
yeah, well, I mostly was involved in the events scene, so organizing parties together with some business partners, renting big warehouses, and yeah, essentially putting on raves. So that was kind of um, the core business when I was out there. Yeah.
And how did you come up with that idea? How did you start with that?
Yeah, so already when I was in New York, yeah, as a teenager, there was quite some demand for parties for the under 18 kind of high school crowd, which I was one of. So friends of mine were involved in also promoting for clubs and stuff, and in the end, yeah, also started doing some organizing of parties targeting like high school kids basically. So already in high school, I got involved in the event scene, and that persisted with my move to Los Angeles.
Exactly. So you could pick it up, well, use what you learned already, uh, but then in LA.
Yeah, definitely, and it was certainly a good way of earning some extra money on the side.
Yeah, I can imagine. And was it? Did you always join the parties as well, or was it just making sure that the parties were there and then your job was done?
Oh no, definitely I was there, partying with the rest. And of course, yeah, well, when you're working at an event, it's different than when you go there with no strings attached or no responsibilities. But yeah, at the same time, you can enjoy yourself.
I can imagine. And you at least you know what kind of party you are joining, right? Because you organize them.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, so you combine this work together with your study. When you look back, what do you think of your study? Did you was it the right move, or did you think, well, maybe? Well, you already mentioned it slightly, but how do you look back at that period?
Yeah, so during my study, I certainly learned what not to do with my life. But in terms of actual studying, well, that I didn't do so much of. I wasn't the best student, let's say. I think my main interest was in social life, partying, taking trips to Las Vegas, lots of shenanigans. And yeah, and the university study was something I was kind of doing on the side, even though it was technically a full-time thing. So, I yeah, like I said in the beginning of the interview, I think in retrospect, right, I would have been much better suited to probably take an engineering based study. Although I think, where I was at in my life at that time, I wasn't really ready to really fully commit myself. And, yeah, what I've learned in the past years is that really, yeah, the desire, the motivation, the commitment to learn and grow is, yeah, essential to actually achieving those goals. And back then, I simply wasn't that interested in developing myself in learning. After high school, I was kind of like, all right, I'm done with school. I'm going to this university because, it's kind of the linear path that everyone expects, and your parents want you to get a degree. But I didn't really want a degree, nor did I care about, taking more classes. I mean, yeah, the appeal, of course, of what comes after the study and being an entrepreneur and achieving success. Yeah, that was perhaps more on my mind than actually applying myself in university. So yeah, in retrospect, well, I didn't actually learn that many useful things in my classes themselves, but in the in the surrounding of the things I was doing besides class, like I said, I certainly learned some useful lessons, which I've taken forward now.
And what is the biggest lesson you learned? Is there one specific thing?
Uh, well, I wouldn't say there's one specific thing, but I guess, perhaps what I just mentioned, that like that motivation, that drive is really key to achieving whatever you want to in life, right? And if you have a vision, if you commit yourself, if you pursue that and really devote your all of your life's energy and effort towards it, then you can make anything happen.
Hmm. So after you graduated, when you were finished with your study, did you already have a vision at that point? Did you already knew what you wanted to do after, or what you wanted to become then?
No, actually, I think I entered university with more of a vision of what I wanted to do, and yeah, over the course of the 4 years, I wasn't very much of a yeah, let's say a good citizen. I spend, a lot of my time just focused on myself. Like I said, be partying a lot, being in a destructive relationship, contributing nothing useful to society, really, if you look at it. After I graduated and got my degree, I was a bit in limbo, kind of, yeah, stuck in this cycle. And it really took kind of dropping everything and moving to Europe and joining my sister to break me out of that cycle and to recreate myself with a fresh start.
But how did you get to that point? Well, of course, it's not from one to the other point that this happens, but um, what triggered you in that sense?
What triggered me to leave, you mean, or?
Yeah, exactly. To stop with your life at that point and to start a new life in Europe, in the Netherlands.
Yeah, so I think it wasn't any single thing, but like I said, I was kind of stuck in this destructive pattern and not really doing anything useful with my life. So obviously, you recognize that, and it doesn't make you happy inside. And at the same time, I was well, I had just gotten out of a 4-year relationship, and I was, while waiting or in between. So I left Los Angeles, and then I moved back to New York for a short amount of time. And this was also at the height of the economic crisis in the States back in, yeah. Um, I think it was what was it, 2010, 11 when I 2010, I think, when I came back, or no, 2011 indeed, when I came back. So there was still, as a fresh graduate from university with zero work experience or limited work experience, finding the right job was also difficult. So all of those factors culminated into, sort of being ready to say, okay, I need to get out of this spot. Let me try something new. And at that time, my sister and I, yeah, connected, and she came up with the idea of, hey, why don't you come to the Netherlands and yeah, work with me in Rotterdam.
And but your sister had a totally different mindset than you, I guess, right? She was more for the environment, more for the sustainability, etc. Um,
Yeah, definitely. I think she, from an earlier age, well, also in her study, she well, after her bachelor's, she started working also for as a journalist, producing like yeah, scientifically oriented films, and a lot of those touched upon, themes around climate change, but also, various other problems or challenges that we face here on planet Earth. And that inspired her to also go into, for her master's, the study of industrial ecology, which is really a study of systems, and how everything essentially is connected, and the impacts that various industries and other sectors have on the planet. So she really learned in that study a lot of the fundamental principles, which now she takes forward in metabolic, and which she's also, yeah, transferred on to those working with her, myself included.
how did your sister convince you? Because your mindset was totally different. Was it talking, a lot of talking, or were there other elements which convinced you to cut with your life at that time and restart a
Yeah,
new life?
yeah, good question. So, well, like I said, I was really kind of done with my past life and the destructive lifestyle I was leading. So I was very much open for a fresh start and a new journey. And I think the combination of, coming to the Netherlands and then directly getting immersed into the work that my sister was doing, and really, yeah, diving into actually teaching myself a lot of valuable knowledge about clean technologies and how they can be applied. And the combination of course, from my sister and all the research she had done in her work, really showing with data the acute problems that we face in terms of depletion of aquifers, or resource limitations of the planet. Data which I wasn't familiar with, but once you see the numbers, it's kind of a wake-up call. So I think it was a culmination of factors of being exposed to this information, which kind of I had never encountered before, and also being yeah, ready to let go of my past destructive ways and really apply myself and hopefully do something positive for this planet. That was what helped me kind of yeah, emerge from and refocus my efforts around this mission to achieve a sustainable future.
Why did your sister initially move to the Netherlands? Is there a specific reason for the Netherlands, or?
Yeah, so there was a specific reason, and that was that her ex was a Dutch guy. So
Ah,
they met at they met yeah, at the university at Yale in the States, where she studied and did her master's, and then they both moved to the Netherlands to start this company together.
okay, yeah,
So,
like
and
that.
he was originally from Rotterdam, so that's why Rotterdam. And then eventually, yeah, when my sister left the former company and started Metabolic, we eventually relocated to Amsterdam, which is where our office was.
I think the timing is was well for you as well when you decided to move to the Netherlands, since you just finished your university, didn't really have a job, you ended a relationship, right? So I
Mhm.
think in that sense the timing was best, maybe.
Oh yeah, I think, timing in life is key, but certainly for me it was the right timing to make that shift. Yeah.
Exactly. And then so you moved to the Netherlands, and you immediately started working for your sister and for her ex-partner, I guess. Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah, so I did, although I was not as deeply engaged as when my sister left that company and started Metabolic, because she was actually also in a bit of a transitionary time. So the relationship with her ex, as you would have guessed, didn't work out.
Mm.
And that was also around the time I came, where they were kind of, not working together very well. So I was working for their company starting off with an internship, but being, having still the entrepreneurial mindset, I actually started off with, in order to also generate some additional income on the side, but also because it was, one of my passions. I started actually organizing some events in Rotterdam. So it wasn't like a clean cut thing that, from as soon as I arrived and stepped off the plane, I was a new person with a new mission. There was a bit of a transition period where I was sort of beginning to get involved in my sister's work, but at the same time still doing some of my own things on the side with the event organization. But then when she formally left the former company and really decided to start her own company from scratch, being Metabolic, and
Mhm.
I made the conscious choice to also, fully commit myself to helping her with starting up Metabolic. That was the time, and roughly also around the time we moved from Rotterdam to Amsterdam. So I also completely, stopped with the sort of on the side events business and really dove full into the metabolic work. And one of our first projects actually that really helped us begin as a company was that one of my sister's contacts from what was then the Ministry of Innovation and Agriculture hired us to do a small feasibility study, which was enough really to kind of act as our seed funding to pay the rent and and eat for those first months where there was no other income. But we got this first project, and that was to conduct a feasibility study about two unused plots in Amsterdam. One of them was a plot of land where there was an old shipyard with highly polluted soil, which was unused, and the other was a water plot just around the corner from it. And the study was actually to analyze how these unused plots of land could be transformed into thriving, sustainable communities, and that was really the Kickstarter of Metabolic, and also the journey which led me to starting up Spectral and where I am today.
Exactly, because when you did the studies, eventually there was a tender, right, to pitch and to make sure that, yeah, it would be changed in a
Yeah,
good way.
we produced a report as a deliverable for this feasibility study. We're very proud of ourselves. We published this report, and then about 2 weeks later, the architects, one of the architects from Space and Matter called saying, "Hey, we won the tender. Now we have to build it." And so suddenly, this very nice theoretical document of how everything can nicely fit together and all the different kind of technologies you can put in place to build a sustainable community. Suddenly we actually had to translate that theoretical design into a very practical, real design that we would actually have to build, with the caveat that, well, there was basically no budget. So that was an interesting beginning to the whole process.
But how did you work it out without but the budget?
Gathering free materials, trying to find ways of, essentially sourcing materials from waste, which in the end turned out to be a pretty inefficient process. And, it's hard to actually build replicable designs if you have all kind of different sized materials. So we did the first boat with that approach, but then yeah, we had to change approaches, and then it involved, I got an iPad, and I was walking around the neighborhood there near to the Koval, and going to building material shops and tool rental places, and pitching them like, hey, look at our awesome project just around the corner. This is our grand ambition. Can you help us? And basically negotiated very good discounts so that we could get the cost down. What else? We looked for, we got some support from Stichting Doen for our a clean tech kind of showcase, which was also a small biorefinery we built, where all of the actual waste, organic waste, is processed. And so that was a bit of extra money. We also all the water filtration systems we had built, which were kind of DIY style. Well, the local water utility, Waternet, that's responsible for all the clean water and sanitation in Amsterdam, was also highly interested in these systems. So we organized a research program, which they funded, and we then tested the quality of the water outputs, and also the quality of the compost that we were producing, to test for contaminants and bacterial composition. And that was also some extra budget which we used to support the actual project. And then yeah, a lot of uh, volunteer effort, as I said before, and also from myself and others working with Metabolic at the time on the tech team, which I was responsible for. We did a lot of hard work for very little pay. So that was one of the formulas there. Yeah.
That works.
Not super scalable per se, but it definitely produced results.
Yeah, exactly. But you were saying you were the lead in the lead of the tech team within Metabolic. Did you, yeah, you already mentioned it that you have a technical background, as in you like to create things, robotic things, etc. But that's a whole new world, I guess, for you, because all these things you were doing at this point were new things, right? You had to study a lot and to teach yourself. How
Yeah.
did you do that?
Yeah, so like I said, uh, the the key ingredient was really the motivation and the commitment to really teach myself and do something useful. And so it started off with learning some of the theoretical background about the systems, and then really, you know, uh, getting hands-on and figuring out how to implement them. So I was installing all the heat pumps, and mounting them, and making installing ventilation systems, and making holes in the walls, and actually cutting some of the boats into pieces. So a lot of heavy kind of demolition work
Yeah.
was involved. And organizing these workshops to let others build, for example, their own heat recovery ventilation, heat exchangers, and all of that indeed involved taking theoretical knowledge that I acquired just through reading lots of stuff on the internet and watching videos, and then doing it in practice. And so the beginning of my sort of clean tech boot camp also was very hands-on with using, figuring out how to really build everything and learning how to work with all the tools and equipment. And yeah, I certainly learned a lot of useful skills in that time.
Yeah. How long did it take to finish up the project, the Koval?
To finish, well, it's a never-ending story, De Kovel.
Okay.
So no, I mean I mean that in a good way. That every year, people have ideas and organize and add new nice features to the site. But the bulk of the work took about 1.5 to 2 years from the point at which we really started on the construction process. And so yeah, for the majority of that time, I was there every day. On the roofs, under the floors, wherever you needed to be to get the stuff installed. And yeah, that's also the time in which I developed a lot of these useful skills, which I have been able to later apply in yeah, building Spectral.
Yeah. Do you say that it defines you, that you are always teaching yourself new things where you are interested in? Is this typically you, or?
Well, typically, like I said, as a growing up as a teenager and a young adult, I wasn't that motivated to teach myself and learn and grow. But certainly, the new me, after coming here to the Netherlands, yeah, I would say that one of my most valuable skills is the ability to learn and adapt, and to teach myself. So that's I guess it also comes a bit maybe from the some of the stubbornness I said I had in the past of always wanting to learn and experience things for myself instead of directly maybe taking the advice of others. I think nowadays I'm better at taking others' advice, but I guess part of that remains in my traits.
Mhm. um, all right. After the Koval, I think 1.5 year later, you started with Spectral. Is it
Yeah,
correct?
my sister and I think one summer we were having a chat, and it was also around the time when we were doing the research into all the technologies for Decoval and the other community I mentioned, which is Schoonschip. Um, we saw all of these festival ads and recognized that also the event sector involves a huge amount of these resource needs for a temporary amount of time. And so we envisioned the idea of this, what we called the resource truck, which was some kind of, badass truck equipped with, a power plant and sanitation systems and water filtration that could, just roll up to festivals and provide the technology they needed in a sustainable way, eliminating the way they often do things still with relying on diesel generators and other less sustainable sources. So that was also kind of the one of the divisions that led to what became Spectral, because our initial focus was also on building these mobile utility systems, hence also the name Spectral Utilities, the full spectrum of utilities for temporary applications, be they, well, in the Netherlands, our biggest market was, of course, the events sector. So that I guess also maybe connected back to my roots in the event scene. But of course, the same technologies could be applied for all other sorts of temporary applications like humanitarian aid, disaster relief. So that was kind of the initial idea, was to develop these technologies that could be used to provide sustainable resource systems in these temporary needs,
Hmm.
for temporary needs.
And can you tell a bit more about the first project you started with for Spectral? I'm referring to the mobile car you found, the old horse car, I guess. I'm not
Yeah,
sure if
yeah.
that's it.
Actually, at the time when we were still in the process of building the Koval, and we got a call or found via, I think, one of our volunteers. There was a lady who owned a horse ranch in the west of Amsterdam, and someone had dumped like a whole apartment building worth of windows on her land that were just stacked in massive piles. So we went there to actually, because it was solid double glazed glass panes. We went there and struck a deal with her that we would take all the windows away, well, in exchange for not having to pay for them because she just wanted to get them off her land. And amidst that rubble pile was also a very old, crappy horse trailer with like, yeah, the whole wooden structure had like holes in it, and the fiberglass hood had cracks, and it had no tires. But we checked the chassis, and yeah, the chassis was still in good condition. And then at the same time, roughly, yeah, a friend of mine who had this dome he had built as a kind of interactive video, audio visual experience. He got a gig to set it up at a local festival in Amsterdam called Magneet. And they, of course, they needed power supply for this audiovisual experience. So we put two and two together and thought, hey, why don't we actually build our first resource truck, which was then definitely not the what we had envisioned, but it was a mobile power station, which we basically we slapped on some tires on this thing. We pulled it to our workshop. We totally rebuilt the whole thing and put a big battery on board, mounted solar panels on top, and yeah, for this festival, constructed this off-grid solar power station, which we later called Horsepower, given that it was built into a horse trailer. And that was really the first, yeah, major milestone towards achieving the vision that we had originally created, and also the first step towards what led to the incorporation of Spectral.
Hmm. That's a nice start.
It was definitely a fun project, and yeah, also a nice opportunity to learn to weld and yeah, work with some of the systems we had used there in terms of the batteries and the other technologies.
Yeah, and then at that point, were you did you already envision that this could grow and this could have a lot of potential and this yeah, well, this is what the Spectral does, or what did you expect when you started?
Yeah, so I think we definitely saw a lot of potential in it, and especially after that first event that we did with the horse power, we we also saw that there was quite a big need, right, as we already believed in the event sector to have more sustainable energy sources. And actually, in the beginning, we were also building mobile compost toilets, so also built up on trailers, and we were experimenting with sustainable technologies and bioprocessing methods using black soldier flies and tiger worms and bokashi bacteria. So we had our own poop processing facility, which was quite a. I'll leave that story for another day. But yeah, so we saw there was a huge amount of demand, and actually, we were building more and more of these systems for renting to festivals initially, and that was a way that we were able to, without taking any external investment, via the rental jobs, and we would also, build yeah, some other things like these, these domes as shelters or stage setups to generate some additional income. And we funneled that income into the R&D efforts of actually developing these prototypes. And so it became clear that there was quite a big demand, and also we were able to, pay off all of the investments into the prototypes in a very short amount of time by generating income from the rentals. And that gave us again some more resources to develop even, yeah, better technical systems. So for the successor of or the next system we built after horsepower, was a totally different kind of technology, and actually the first launching product of Spectral. So a big 6 meter trailer covered entirely with solar panels, with hydraulic cylinders to open up the flaps, and a very big battery system on board, which could provide power to quite a large stage or a whole small festival. And so yeah. Um, that system also, the solar transformer, we called it, was really our launching product. And again, we were able to pay off the whole investments into that because of all the interest from the festival sector, and yeah, the demand that we saw.
You read an article in 2015 about the possibilities, what you could do with, how do you call it, power batteries. That
Mm-hmm.
was really a new thing for you, a new insight.
Yeah, no, definitely. So I think in the beginning of our company, we were very much hardware focused. So really building the systems, cutting steel, welding them, building everything from scratch. And certainly we had to learn about how to work with the technologies from a physical perspective. So, how to actually connect the batteries to the other equipment and make it all work. But only after we built actually the first prototype for the solar transformer, which was our launching product when we really started Spectral. Yeah, after building it, I actually um, decided to do a bit of research into what can this thing really do besides just providing off-grid energy to events and construction and other temporary applications. So I started educating myself about how the whole energy system works, and especially with regards to the electricity system and the need for yeah, keeping the frequency of the network within a certain range. And at that time, indeed, there was a report by the Rocky Mountain Institute called The Economics of Energy Storage, which really opened my eyes to all of the possibilities and the ways that you can use battery systems to actually help support keeping the network in balance and keeping power quality in yeah, within the right levels. And these are all things that most people take for granted. You just plug in whatever device you have and expect electricity to flow. And there's actually quite a complex system behind it all, orchestrating a constant balance of supply and demand. And so 5 years after reading this and learning about a lot of these concepts for the first time, I was able to reflect and look back because yeah, in 2020, after having quite a successful run, Spectral was able to proudly announce that we had become the market leader in control of large-scale battery systems and hybrid renewable power plants, which combine batteries and wind or solar. And in the Netherlands, we currently control the largest fleet of batteries that are used for this grid balancing service. So about 5 years after learning about the concept for the first time, we were able to evolve our company into actually becoming the market leader and even pushing the boundaries of innovation in that domain.
Yeah, absolutely. That's such an achievement on itself, and so fascinating how you can how you already like I think that's the story here as well in this podcast that you already when you see an opportunity you dive into it and you specialize yourself in it and now only 5 years later, I mean that's such a short period. You are the market leader in the Netherlands with this solution, so that's really inspiring and quite an achievement, I say.
Yeah, and of course it helps that it is a very much a new thing. Back in 2015, these reports were coming out, but they were very much research focused about what could you do in theory, and maybe in some more advanced markets in the US or in Germany, they were starting to do the first projects using these systems, but still the costs of batteries were a bit too high to really make it work in most markets. So we saw the opportunity, and also we always knew that in the long run, where we could add the most value would be not in the hardware itself, because in the end, the companies that have a lot of capital and factories and are equipped to build these kind of hardware systems would have a competitive edge over us. But we were able to specialize in actually building the intelligence on top of the hardware and figuring out how can you actually steer and coordinate all of these different systems to make them function as one integrated whole. And that's essentially what Spectral does in many different ways, whether it's combining batteries and large scale wind and solar and integrating them with various markets and systems to, provide balancing services, or integrating heating and ventilation and cooling systems in buildings, and smart forecasts to optimize the efficiency of those many different distributed systems. That's essentially where we were able to excel and develop our core competencies.
And how does it work for you? Because yeah, obviously you are always watching the trends in the market, I guess, and see what happens. But how do you decide to jump into something? Because in 2017 you started to do some testing with blockchain. How did this work for you?
So I guess it works in a few different ways. For one, Spectral is a highly mission-driven organization, so we never started off with, let's say, having a business model or specific product concept, but we knew we wanted to make an impact in accelerating the energy transition, and so we sort of, just dove in headfirst and learned by doing. And in that process of this kind of organic growth, so we haven't taken still any external investment, and we're now, around 45 people with Spectral, and Metabolic also still hasn't taken any investment, with around 100 people in their broader ecosystem now. So we've managed to make it work with this organic growth model, really by doing, experimenting, and also keeping an ear to the market, listening in the interactions we had with prospective customers, what they liked, what they didn't like, what their needs were. And in this way, you can kind of pivot and stay agile and really focus on where you hear the market has the most need, the most interest, the most pull in a certain direction. And that's something where I think, companies that are funded from day one with venture capital or other means, they might have a very solid product idea, and invest a lot of time into building that. But if you don't have that connection to your customers, to the market, and like the pull in a certain direction, then you might sometimes overlook a very important factor or miss the mark. And that's, I think, one of the things which has led to our success is keeping sort of the pulse, keeping track of the pulse of the market. And that's how we maybe make decisions or choose which new product propositions we're going to focus on developing, is really that market pull. And of course, always checking against, is this in line with our mission and vision? Does it have high impact potential? And by the way, that's also one of the reasons why we chose to eventually leave the business of renting systems to events and festivals, because helping the Amsterdam or the Dutch festival scene become a little bit more sustainable was not the scale of impact we wanted to achieve, and we felt that focusing more on the larger energy system, smart grids, and the intelligence to connect all of these systems would be where we as a company could make our impact. And that maybe connects back to your question on how we decided to experiment with blockchain technology. So there again, we didn't have a specific, let's say, business model or something that we wanted to pursue in the market. It was really more from the visionary perspective of we saw distributed ledger technology and blockchain as a very interesting fundamental technology that could help society move away from these centralized models of organization towards more distributed systems. And it was also a bit of a thought exercise of how do you take something that's now completely centrally governed and make it equally robust or even more transparent, more democratized, and organize it in a completely decentralized way. So it was a very cool idea,
Hmm.
and connected to our mission and vision, and that's why we decided to jump in and experiment with it, to really try it out in practice instead of staying on the theoretical thought exercise level. Hey, let's see how it works, and also let's see how it works with a real community, and involve them in the design process. And that's exactly what we did with the Decoval community. And we set up this peer-to-peer energy trading platform, which would tokenize, yeah, actual kilowatt hours of solar energy that was produced. And then we developed some systems where, for example, they could buy beer at the cafe using their solar energy. But yeah, it was very much a social experiment to see, is the technology fitting the needs that we see for this case. And in the end, the conclusion back then, that was in 2017, was that, well, yeah, blockchain technology, while a very interesting technology in general and has a huge amount of potential, the specific technology we chose, and the level of maturity of that technology was still not there yet, to support what we really wanted to do and have the flexibility of what we wanted to do in the future. And as well, it introduced a lot of overhead that was perhaps not necessary in that case, as well as
Hmm.
requiring some uh, highly specialized skills, of developers who really knew how to work with the technology, which, yeah, is not an easy find either. So for those reasons, we actually chose to, for our own projects, put blockchain a bit in the fridge, but we're still very much eagerly, yeah, following the developments, and we do believe that in the long term, and for many other applications, blockchain has a lot to bring. And besides just blockchain, other, of course, distributed ledger technology that uses slightly different fundamental principles.
Hmm. Do you see yourself as a disruptive company?
Certainly, yeah, and I think there's there's at least some evidence of that, and I hope that as we continue to grow, we are able to really make an impact in this sector. But because of the position we've been able to achieve, and besides, and I guess the fact that a lot of what we do is driven by our vision, and we're able to really, yeah, pursue that vision and make it happen in practice. We often run into the boundaries of, regulation or our industry models, and that forces us to find either workarounds or loopholes in the existing system where we can still achieve what we want to, or more and more we're also involved in lobbying efforts, and having discussions with lawmakers about, yeah, what do we need to change to actually empower companies like ours, but everyone else who's working in this domain, to make an impact faster, so that we can reach that 100% sustainable energy goal, yeah, as quickly as possible.
Hmm. And how long do you think you need before becoming a 100% clean energy society?
Yeah, so that's a very loaded question, because there's many scenarios in, how things will play out, and it also largely depends on how quickly other parts of the world start to electrify, and consume more energy versus the commitments that various countries make, and try and stick to. But yeah, I think the 2050 target is the one to really, to shoot for, at least, yeah, in terms of having a major transition where we can start to actually remove carbon from the atmosphere, instead of continuing to add more, and of course not just carbon, but general greenhouse gases. So I think that's the goal to stick with, and even to try and do better where possible. And it is going to take some technological breakthroughs. So with the technologies we have today, and the pace that you see things moving, yeah, we certainly need some more advancement in technology. And also, I think a great trend has been, in the past years, you really see an increase in the amount of renewables being put out there in projects. And I think, yeah, that needs to continue in a massive way, where we all are really focused on this objective, and really put the pedal to the metal, so to speak, to not yeah, waste essential time in moving in the right direction.
Hmm. You are really passionate about about your, well, it's not a project, about your company and the things you do and the clean energy. Um, doesn't it frustrate you at some points as well? Because I can imagine that you want the pace to be higher, that you want to go faster. Um, how do you cope with that?
Well, but I'm only human, in the sense that I think, yeah, everyone can get frustrated at times, and certainly at moments, if you're in a grumpy mood, and you start thinking about all the negative things, you can easily get frustrated. But in general, I'm also an optimist, and so I think, yeah, we certainly have the potential to make it happen, and especially, yeah, well, I know one way or another, right, we'll find the solutions, and it might be a difficult path, but hey, that's the path in front of us, and there's a lot to learn on that path, and a lot of positive things to take away, even though it might not be always that fun at times.
Hmm. So you're totally convinced that we can fight the climate change eventually.
Sure, and even if the climate gets out of hand, and yeah, there's catastrophes and things, I think as I have my faith is in humanity to persist and find a way forward, and I think my main goal is to figure out, how can we do this, and stay focused, but also of course enjoy the journey, and yeah, take what we can from it.
Yeah, exactly. Um, so, looking at the time, I'm about to round up. A few more questions. If you look back at the period, at one point you chose, okay, I'm going to move to the Netherlands. How proud are you at the things you achieved and what you did and the change you, yeah, went through?
Definitely. I mean, I think compared to where I was before I came, I'm certainly proud of where I've managed to get to, and that's yeah, that's something that well, is great to see. I think others around me are also sharing that opinion. And I think there's a long ways to go, a lot of more things to learn, and certainly a lot more potential to even accelerate and make a bigger impact compared to where we are today. So I'm looking forward to the coming years, and continuing on this mission.
Nice. And what do you advise to others to achieve dreams?
Yeah, I think perhaps what I already said, I'll reiterate. I think if you have the right vision and the motivation and the drive, and you commit yourself fully, then anything is possible. So yeah, ignore those day to day ups and downs as much as you can. Of course, it's sometimes difficult. Stay focused on the bigger picture. Keep moving in that direction, and over time you'll see that you're getting closer and closer to where you want to be.
Thank you. That's very inspiring. Philip, I want to thank you very much for your time and for sharing your story. My last question for you is, do you have a potential next guest in mind who we can invite for the before and after show?
That's a good question. I know you also emailed me about that. Ooh, yeah, no one really pops to mind at the moment. I think, I mean, if the theme is meant to be before and after, I mean, obviously, the one guest that I think could tell an interesting part of, her own view on the story would be my sister, and especially the transition she went through in uh, well, getting to where she is now with metabolic.
Hmm.
Yeah, if I also think of anyone else who I think has like a very distinct kind of before and after themed story to tell, I'll certainly get back to you.
Philip, thank you very much for your time and sharing your story. And it's really inspiring. Inspiring, sorry, it's a really inspiring story, and I hope you inspired others as well. I certainly believe it will inspire others as well, and especially because it's such an important topic for us as a society. So thanks for sharing, and hope to speak to you soon.
Thanks for hosting, Bram, and good luck with all the recordings.
Thank you very much.